You have to ask yourself the question, if reward, strategic reward, is a mean to an end, what is the end? Well, if you look at the evolution of reward in organizations, you'll see that not a lot has changed over the last 100 years. And if we go back in time, it all started with Frederick Taylor, who was an engineer, and in 1911 he said, well, what we have to do is we have to incentivize employees in order that they do their job well. So he thought that people were intrinsically lazy and had a vested interest in doing their job as slow as possible. That's what Frederick Taylor said. And he said we need to incentivize them. We need to give extra money in order for them to do their job well. So money is a motivator in order to do your job as you should. And if we look at today's world, is if I talk to managers, they often say more or less the same thing, which of course is nonsense. And if you look at the scale-up world, they're the complete opposite of the workers of 100 years ago. They're intrinsically motivated, they're interested, they're highly skilled, they want to be motivated from their work instead of only their pay. Well, if you look at strategy, the word strategy originates from ancient Greek, and it means something like how to win the war. So if you say, I want to have something strategic, it should be in order to aim to reach something. It's a mean to an end. So always ask yourself, what is it that I want to achieve? Do you want to motivate your people? Do you want to make sure they do a better job? Do you want to attract talent? Do you want to retain talent? Do you want to think it's fair compared to the market, etc.? So you have to ask yourself the question, if reward, strategic reward, is a mean to an end, what is the end? Well, one of the biggest challenges for scale-ups when it comes to reward strategies is that don't step into the pitfall that you think that money is your solution to every problem. What is difficult for scale-ups is that in many cases they don't make any profit. So it's very difficult in order to link your rewards with your income, because those are often not in sync. And what you see a lot is that people in scale-ups, when there's success, everybody attributes success to themselves. But if there's no money, which is not the same as not success, but if there's just not enough money, then people do not attribute that to themselves, but then raise their hands in the air and say, well, there's nothing I can do about it. So if you think that with your compensation strategy you can achieve every strategic goal, it's just not the case. You have to, in terms of communication, be very honest on what you can offer and cannot offer. And your competitive advantage is often not so much the money, but the fact that people can grow, that they can be part of a bigger thing, and that's something that you should focus on. But the idea that rewards is going to be your competitive edge is probably not the case. I think that a scale-up company should think about their reward strategy from day one, because rewards is one of the best ways to demotivate your staff. It's a mediocre motivator, but it's a very good demotivator. In other words, if you don't compensate people in the right way, it's the ideal way to make them demotivated. Especially in scale-ups, they grow and they grow and they grow, and the moment that you have more people have the tendency, this is human nature, they have the tendency to compare themselves with others. Now, if you go from 2 people to 5, and you hire a 6th person who gets paid much more than the other 5, you just imported a huge problem. Because that's the moment that you just imported a new benchmark, and as a result, you just hired a 6th person and you just demotivated 5 others. So what you see a lot when it comes to rewards, so mistakes that people make, is that research shows that around 25% of a performance appraisal is actually originating from performance. So you're making so you have a perception as a manager of your employee, and this perception is based for around 25% on what this person actually does, and the rest most of the time is bias. Now, bias you will see towards women, what most people know. So women make less money for the same jobs as men, but strangely enough you also see things like ethnic minorities get paid less. The way that you behave, so for instance, if you have a big mouth, it just pays off. So people who are very vocal, they make more money than the people who are just a little bit more shy. So there are a lot of biases when it comes to reward. And if you think that you don't have any biases, So if you think that your staff is being paid in a very fair way, it's probably not the case. So if you're making reward decisions, never make them alone. Yeah, so ask your HR advisor or an external advisor, or benchmark them versus an external benchmark. But be aware that we have a lot of biases and that a lot of reward strategies are completely unfair, which is the perfect way to demotivate your staff. So get some help with that. So when we look at why do people leave in organizations, it turns out that money is not in the top 10. So in my career, I've been working in human resources for the last 25 years or so. I've never seen anyone leave a company for just the money itself. Unless you work in a very poor country where the difference between a little bit more money is the difference between a good or a bad life. But let's say in a scale-up organization in countries like the Netherlands or Western Europe or the US, so let's say in the Western world, money alone is never the reason for people leaving. By the way, the biggest reason why people leave by far is management. Yeah, so people leave because of their manager. When it comes to attracting new talent, it turns out that money is important. It turns out that it's getting more important for the younger generation because housing is very expensive in places where most scale-ups are situated. So if you look at the Netherlands, Amsterdam, Eindhoven, Enschede, those are very expensive areas. So money is becoming more important in order to get housing. But for the rest, I would say make sure that you're more or less in line with your competitors, more or less. So even 10, 20% lower than your competitors, and then you're fine. What do people look for, especially in a scale-up, is opportunity to grow, creativity, being connected with others, being part of a bigger team, of a bigger story, etc. That's much more important than just the money thing.